everybody. Welcome to Falcon Spotlight, where we get to meet some small town people doing some big time things. We're coming at you today from Faribault, Minnesota, and I'm joined today by one of our teachers at Faribault High School, Miss Elizabeth Daniels. She's a language arts teacher, a member of our 9th grade academy, prom advisor, and just all around rock star. Now, one thing, Elizabeth, that I really admire about you is, you're brilliant. You're able to have just an insightful and intellectual conversation around literature and pedagogy and all these things, but you're still able to connect with 15-year-olds that maybe even struggle in school. And that's really just a tremendous gift that you have. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. Why don't we just get started with you telling us a little bit about your background, what your story is, maybe why you went into teaching, some of the roles that you've had, and give us just a little bit of a backstory about you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Illinois, about 45 minutes south of Chicago, in a pretty small farming town, not totally indifferent from Faribault. And when I think back to like high school, I was a music kid, I was a theater kid, I was super into academics. I danced for 10, 11 years. I worked at a youth center in town, which I think is really the first place that I really got my first taste of teaching. I was working with middle school students and mentoring them. And getting into teaching, I didn't really think, when I was thinking about a career, like, oh, I want to be a teacher. I think it started with, what do I love? What do I really enjoy? And I didn't want to teach music, and I thought, well, I love stories, and I love writing, and I like talking about stories and what they mean and how they change people. And so it started with language arts, basically. And kind of moved into, well, maybe teaching would be a good fit. And I don't think that I really fell in love with teaching until I was actually a teacher.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but I do.
Yeah. And in that journey of you kind of, growing up in this way and finding yourself in the classroom, were there any people along the way that influenced you either to enter into the profession, or you mentioned that once you got there, that's really where you found your passion for it? Has there been anybody who's really just influenced you to become the teacher that you are?
Yeah, I had a really crazy 9th grade language arts teacher.
Most 9th grade language arts teachers are a little crazy.
Yeah, a little bit. You kind of have to be, I guess.
Right.
And she was, I think she just made things intriguing, and she definitely pushed me to be my best. And I think my love of stories really came from her and how she made those come alive. And as far as other people who have a really big influence along the way, honestly, I think my husband did. I think other people a lot of times notice your strengths more than you do. I think sometimes we can be really critical of ourselves and tend to see weaknesses. And he's good at seeing my strengths and encouraging me. And he came from a background that was much different than mine. He was a person who struggled in school and had things at home that made things really difficult for him and made it hard to be successful in school because he just kind of had the odds against him. And that's really inspired me to work with some of the kids that have a harder time with school and are a little bit harder to reach. I think it's helped me have patience with those kids and have more understanding for them, and more of a drive to really help every kid that comes into my classroom.
Yeah. I think you're so right when you talk about the fact that sometimes when you're removed, you can see other people's strengths, and I think that that's one of my favorite parts of this job is when you're working with younger people, you can see the greatness within them before they can even see it in themselves, right? And you get to just bring that out of them. And one of the very special roles that you have here now is within the 9th grade academy, and you're able to sort of apply some of those gifts. If you would, take us through a little bit. What is the 9th grade academy? What are some of the philosophies that we have around that? What's your role within it, and what are some of the goals that you hope to achieve?
Yeah, the 9th grade academy, I think, has been the biggest professional growing experience that I've had. And this is my 7th year teaching, and so I've been doing it this year and last year and got to be part of the building process of what that was going to look like in our school. Really, our purpose is to reach students who often slip between the cracks. Sometimes those kids are really good at hiding and kind of getting through school without being as successful as they can be, or not getting through school. And so they need some extra help along the way. They need some extra support making the transition between middle school and high school. And the middle school and high school are very different. I mean, there's not just the schools themselves, but the place in life that students are in at middle school versus high school. And so we try to help them with those transitions. And a lot of those transitions are academic. A lot of them are social transitions. A lot of them are emotional transitions. And I have been just so blessed to be a part of the teaching team that I'm with.
It's a pretty solid group.
Yeah. And we are all really close, and we are talking about these kids all the time with how we can help support them, and if one of us has a connection with a student that maybe the rest of us don't, that we can really build on. And we're just in constant communication about how we can find even sometimes the smallest opportunities to reach kids. And even if they seem insignificant, they aren't. And because we have the same kids all year long, we get to see really big transformations in kids. And especially since we're coming to the end of the year, it's been really neat to start having some of those conversations of like, remember this kid at the beginning of the year?
Yeah,
like remember where they were at? Yes,
yeah.
And I love it.
And so in that same vein, it's so exciting for us to be able to see students grow. Have you been able to reflect at all about, did you say you've been teaching for?
This is my 7th year.
This is 7 years. Your own professional growth.
Yeah.
What are some areas that you think that you've really grown in? How are you a better teacher now than you were, number one, when you first started, but even since last year? What are some areas that you've really seen yourself take a step forward in?
I think finding different ways that students learn, and maybe not just the way they learn, but the way they show their learning. Okay. I've really started to notice, I think working with the academy and these other teachers has really opened my eyes to just the different ways that kids struggle with learning, and sometimes they're learning it, but they have a hard time communicating that for whatever reason, whether it's the format of a test or an assignment. Sometimes it's just like you need to have an extra conversation with this kid and give them the chance to show you differently that they know.
Right.
I've been working more with reworking curriculum to make sure that my assessments that I'm giving them are solid and that they're valid questions that I'm asking, and the answers that they are giving me are actually showing me what I want them to know or what I need them to know. So that's been a big area of growth. And I think just kind of really feeling like I'm on my own feet now and finding ways that I can help other teachers now. I feel like I'm finally moving into the point where there are some newer teachers who are really hungry to grow as teachers, and they're really passionate, and letting myself be available to share my own experiences and being confident with what I have. I think just confidence is a lot of it.
Right, and I've noticed that too, you sort of stepping into that role as not only teacher, but teacher leader, that voice and that advocate, not only for yourself and your students, but also your team and your peers. And I think that you've been able to get a lot of respect from everyone for stepping into that space.
And it's not a really comfortable place for me to be,
really?
to be honest.
Yeah.
But our Dean, Joe Sage, has really encouraged that, and the team as well, I think, has given me feedback, and we've just given each other feedback, I think, that has really kind of boosted all of our confidence in our abilities, and realizing that when we do that, it's better for kids because we're collaborating more, willing to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah. One thing I appreciate about you is your enthusiasm and your energy and just kind of your passion for wanting to help kids, and you always have such a good attitude, but teaching's really hard, and I know that some days are better than other days. When you think about the days when you leave the building and you're walking on air and you're feeling like you're having an impact and making a difference, can you pinpoint anything that that sort of makes that happen more often? You know, what are the best parts of your day or the best parts of your job that really make you feel great about being a teacher?
When kids are excited. Even if I come in the morning and I'm not in a good mood, or you're just tired. I mean, you've got kids too, you know, some like at home, you know, that it is exhausting. And when you're going home to toddlers, it's hard to have the energy left in the rest of the evening to do that. But I really feed off of the energy of my students. And when they're energized and excited, today we were reviewing for To Kill a Mockingbird, and they were so excited about knowing some of the answers. And I feel like I'm on a cloud right now that we just finished a book that took us forever because of all of our snow days. And they're still able to be excited about the end of the book and excited about their knowledge about it. That makes me pretty happy a lot of days.
Absolutely. And unlocking that love of learning is just so important. You know, you could teach a concept or a fact or a figure, but if we don't make kids love to learn and be lifelong learners, you know, I think that we're falling short in our responsibility. So I would share that. When they're excited about learning, that gets me fired up too.
And I had a student this year send me a Schoology message about something he had accomplished, and he said he was really proud of himself, and he hoped I was proud of him too. And I was like, heck yes, I'm proud of you too.
Yes.
It's just the greatest. You feel like they're your kids sometimes, you know, you spend so much time with them and try so hard with them. And
that speaks, I think, to your ability to build relationships and these close bonds with kids. You know, everybody watching this, you know, went to school once upon a time, right? And so sometimes I think that most people think, oh, I know what it maybe is like to be a teacher. I was around teachers. I was in classrooms. What's something that maybe you see as a misconception that sometimes members of our community or that people who don't work in schools might have about your job or our school? And then what would you like to say to maybe set the record straight? What would you like people to know?
I think sometimes when teachers get stressed out, it sometimes comes across like they're upset with their students, or they don't like certain students, or that we just don't want to be here. And that is just so not the case. I think that everybody in life gets frustrated with different things, and it comes out in the wrong ways sometimes. And sometimes I think that's a rap that we get, but this staff really enjoys their jobs. And I think the culture in our building has shifted a little bit, and I'm really sensing that in a building as a whole. And we really have fun here at the high school. I think in general, I don't know sometimes what the reputation of the high school is, but we enjoy each other here, and we have fun, and we, you know, sometimes fight, I guess, like all families do.
We have our moments, right?
But it's a nice place to be right now.
I agree. Last question.
Okay.
Save the toughest one for last.
Okay.
All right. You're a great teacher.
Thank you.
What is the secret to being a great teacher? I told you it was going to be a tough one.
Keeping candy in your drawer.
You heard it here, folks. Candy is the key.
In your drawer. What is the key to being a great teacher? There is no, as Mr. Venti would say, what does he say? A silver bullet, or there's no, what is that?
Silver bullet.
I think it is finding a way to enjoy your job. And I think you have to find a school and a staff and a community that's a good fit for you. And when you find a community and a group of kids and staff that you're passionate about, you don't want to leave. And it makes you a better teacher. I remember my first day being in Faribault, because I live up in Rosemount. Other than my interview, my first day being in Faribault technically as a teacher, I met with my mentor teacher in downtown Faribault. And she said, I just said, what is it like to teach in Faribault? And she said, I really like being here, and I can't picture myself being anywhere else. I really can't. She just said it's a down-to-earth community. There's an interesting, diverse group of families and students that make this such a valuable job, and that really resonated with me and resonates with me to this day because I feel the same way.
That's incredible. Well, we're so lucky to have you.
Thanks.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and just talk teaching and learning and share your passion for what you're doing here and all your excitement around the things that we have going on at Faribault High School. And to all of you, through this series of Falcon Spotlight, what we're really trying to do is highlight some of the amazing things that we have going on, and the number one asset that we have is our amazing staff. And I hope that you were able to get to know Elizabeth a little bit better, and we'll be joining you in future weeks with some more stories about small town people doing some big time things. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.